Everyone's been treating this like it's already decided. Cleveland, the homecoming, the poetic ending, done deal. Bill Simmons literally called it a done deal. Prediction markets have Cleveland as the clear favorite, and now multiple league executives are saying something completely different, and it directly contradicts the story we've all been told for weeks. According to Front Office Sports, several Western Conference executives now expect LeBron James to actually sign with the Golden State Warriors over the Cleveland Cavaliers. Not lean toward, expect. That's a real split forming behind the scenes, and it changes everything we thought we knew about how this ends. For context, Charania has consistently named 5 teams as LeBron's leading suitors throughout this process: Cleveland, Miami, Golden State, Philadelphia, and Minnesota. And per Charania, teams interested in signing him have actually been sending voice note pitches directly to Rich Paul, LeBron's longtime agent, whether that's an owner, a team president, or a general manager. Those voice notes then make their way to LeBron himself as part of what Charania describes as LeBron's process of studying every option carefully. There's reportedly no rush and no timetable he's operating under, which is exactly why a race that looked settled weeks ago is suddenly wide open again. If you watched our last video, you already know how deep Golden State went to try to make this happen. Draymond Green gave back tens of millions of dollars in guaranteed money specifically to create the cap space needed to chase LeBron and pair him with a traded-for Anthony Davis. The whole plan looked like it collapsed. 0 outside free agents signed, whiffs on Rui Hachimura and Anthony Simons, a roster that looked stuck in place with an aging core and no flexibility left. We framed it, accurately, as one of the biggest offseason failures in recent memory. But according to this new reporting, that gamble might not actually be dead. It might just still be waiting on one answer. Let's actually lay out both sides of this, because there's a real case for each direction, and it's clear even people inside the league are genuinely split. Start with Cleveland, because it's the story everyone's been running with. The Cavaliers represent a full-circle homecoming, the city where LeBron's entire legend started. Prediction markets currently have them as the favorite. Bill Simmons has publicly called a third stint in Cleveland basically a done deal, and Cleveland has been making real moves that look like they're building specifically around the idea that LeBron is coming. They re-signed Donovan Mitchell to a massive $273 million extension, and plenty of people around the league believe part of that move was Mitchell sending a direct signal to LeBron that he's fully committed to staying and building something together. There's also a real basketball case here. Cleveland's front office has quietly built one of the deepest, most talented rosters in the East, and pairing that with LeBron's history and the emotional weight of finishing his career where it began is about as clean a story as the NBA could possibly write. Mitchell made the All-Star team in each of his 4 seasons with the Cavaliers, and Cleveland's roster already has real size, shooting, and two-way talent up and down the depth chart. Add a genuine future first-ballot Hall of Famer to that mix, and it's not hard to see why prediction markets have leaned so heavily in Cleveland's direction. On the flip side, the case for Los Angeles fading entirely from this conversation says a lot too. According to ESPN's Ramona Shelburne, league reaction to the Lakers' offseason has centered heavily on how much they gave up to land Walker Kessler, not necessarily because he wasn't worth acquiring, but because it left them with almost no remaining assets to keep improving the roster around Doncic. Shelburne also reported that Lakers executive J.J. Redick and Doncic himself were heavily involved in personally recruiting the players brought in this summer, meaning the front office is explicitly building toward continuity with this exact group rather than keeping the door open for LeBron to return in any capacity. That's context worth remembering, since it shows just how firmly and mutually this divorce between LeBron and the Lakers has actually been. Now here's the case for Golden State, and it's stronger than a lot of people want to admit. Despite everything that went wrong publicly this offseason, confirmed reporting says the Warriors are fully aware Cleveland currently looks like the frontrunner, and they have not relented in their pursuit at all. They're still actively in this. And when you strip away the noise, the actual basketball fit for LeBron in Golden State remains excellent. His chemistry with Steph Curry and Draymond Green from All-Star games and Team USA runs is real and well documented. His respect for Steve Kerr's system is real too. One Western Conference executive told Front Office Sports flatly that he'd be stunned if LeBron picked anyone other than Golden State or Cleveland. which tells you the rest of the league has already quietly narrowed this down to a two-team race, no matter what the public storyline says. If you're new here, we break down stories like this the moment real reporting shifts, not just when the headlines are convenient. Hit subscribe so you catch the next update on this, because it's clearly still moving fast. Here's what makes this genuinely hard to call. According to ESPN's Shams Charania, LeBron is now described as inching closer to an actual decision. Every relevant executive, president, and owner around the league has already made their pitch, and conversations are continuing exclusively through his agent, Rich Paul. Charania also reported something that matters a lot here. This decision won't be financially driven. LeBron has reportedly made clear privately that he wants to go wherever gives him the best real shot at competing for a championship, not wherever pays the most. That's a genuinely different calculation than most free agency decisions, and it's exactly why this remains so unpredictable. When money isn't the deciding factor, you're left weighing things that are much harder to measure from the outside: comfort, fit, ego, nostalgia, and locker room chemistry. And here's a detail that shows just how much weight this single decision is carrying across the entire league right now. The Los Angeles Lakers, the team LeBron just left, are themselves frozen by his indecision in a completely separate situation. This offseason, the Lakers spent roughly $250 million rebuilding their roster around Luka Doncic, re-signing Austin Reeves to a 4-year deal, in which Reeves actually gave the team a $5 million discount himself to preserve flexibility, and adding pieces like Kevon Looney and Zaire Williams to fill out a full 15-man roster. On paper, that roster looks complete, but according to insiders, the Lakers still see a glaring hole at wing defense, someone athletic enough to guard opposing wings, so Doncic and Reeves don't have to carry that defensive burden themselves. Their answer to that problem has a name: Jonathan Kuminga. The Lakers have been chasing Kuminga as a sign-and-trade target from Atlanta, hoping to land the switchable wing defender their roster desperately needs. According to reporting, the Lakers boxed themselves in financially by spending heavily on Walker Kessler, Quentin Grimes, and other pieces, meaning all they can legally offer Kuminga outright is a veteran minimum deal, something Kuminga has already turned down, since he's reportedly holding out for $20 million or more annually. The only real path left is a sign and trade, likely built around Jared Vanderbilt and remaining draft capital heading to Atlanta. But Cleveland is also pursuing Kuminga, whose former assistant coach in Golden State, Kenny Atkinson, is now Cleveland's head coach, giving the Cavaliers a real inside relationship to lean on. The problem is, Cleveland can't seriously chase Kuminga until they know whether they're actually landing LeBron, because that outcome determines their entire remaining cap situation. So an entirely separate star's future on an entirely separate team is sitting frozen behind LeBron's decision. That's how much gravity this one choice is pulling on the rest of the league right now. It's worth mentioning too that Cleveland reportedly wants to preserve enough roster flexibility to potentially work out a trade for Bronny James if they do land LeBron, adding an entire extra emotional layer to that side of the decision that Golden State simply doesn't have. There's also a physical, practical piece to this that ESPN's Brian Windhorst raised directly on First Take, and it might matter more than any of the emotional storylines. Windhorst suggested what's likely going to be important to LeBron at this stage is finding a situation where he can get through the regular season without extraordinary measures, without having to play 38 minutes a night, or take 25 shots just to keep his team competitive. He pointed out that Philadelphia could make a compelling case that they wouldn't tax his body heavily, allowing him to save himself for the playoffs. But Windhorst was also clear that Cleveland can make just as strong a case on the roster quality front, while obviously having a much stronger case on the emotional, hometown front. In other words, even the durability calculation, one of the most practical factors in this entire decision, doesn't clearly separate Cleveland from its competitors. And it's not just LeBron creating ripple effects across the league right now. The Miami Heat, fresh off their blockbuster trade for Giannis Antetokounmpo, have also emerged with real interest in signing Klay Thompson, according to the Miami Herald. Multiple sources say that interest exists completely independent of whatever LeBron decides, since Miami's rebuilt roster around Giannis still needs outside shooting and size on the wing. Thompson, sitting at 36 years old and owed roughly $17.5 million in the final year of his contract with Dallas, would address a real need for Miami if a trade or buyout can be worked out. It's a reminder that LeBron's decision isn't happening in a vacuum. It's one massive storyline sitting on top of an entire offseason of teams simultaneously repositioning themselves around each other. So how do you actually read this? On one hand, Cleveland offers the story, the history, and reportedly the deepest roster fit in the East. And it's the option the betting markets and most public reporting have leaned toward for weeks. On the other hand, rival executives inside the league, people with real access and real information, are now saying Golden State remains a completely live option, and multiple sources agree the real race has already narrowed down to just these two teams, regardless of what the public odds say. That's a genuinely rare situation, where the inside the league read and the public consensus are pulling in two different directions at the same time. There's also a version of this where both stories are true at once. Cleveland can remain the public favorite and the emotional frontrunner, while Golden State stays alive as the real alternative LeBron is still seriously weighing behind closed doors. Free agency negotiations rarely play out as cleanly as public reporting makes them sound, and it's entirely possible LeBron himself hasn't fully settled on an answer yet, weighing the poetic ending against the basketball fit and locker room chemistry that reportedly matters just as much to him at this stage of his career. Whatever happens, the Western Conference LeBron would be walking into if he picks Golden State is brutal. Oklahoma City is the reigning champion. Houston still has Kevin Durant. San Antonio reached the finals behind Wembanyama's extension. Minnesota added LaMelo Ball next to Anthony Edwards. That's not exactly a soft landing spot for a 41-year-old, no matter how good the locker room chemistry looks on paper. What we do know for certain is that this decision is now actively freezing moves across multiple franchises simultaneously. Cleveland's pursuit of Kuminga, the Lakers' need for a wing defender, Golden State's entire long-term roster plan, given that Curry and Jimmy Butler are both on expiring contracts next season. Every one of these situations sits on pause, waiting on one 41-year-old to make up his mind. And according to Windhorst and others, there's still no real timetable he's operating under. So where does this actually land? If you trust the public reporting, the prediction markets, and Bill Simmons, Cleveland remains the story to beat, and the homecoming narrative is simply too clean to ignore. If you trust the newest reporting from front office sports and the executives directly weighing in, Golden State is genuinely still alive, and possibly closer than anyone outside the two front offices realizes. Both can't be true at the same time, and soon, we're going to find out which version of this story was actually right. So tell me what you think. Does LeBron go home to Cleveland for the poetic ending everyone's expecting? Or does he surprise everyone and pick Golden State for the fit and the chemistry instead? And if he picks Golden State, does that suddenly validate every single risk the Warriors took this offseason? Or does it just mean they got lucky after nearly blowing up their entire roster for nothing? Drop your prediction in the comments, and let's see who actually calls this one correctly before the decision finally comes down.